It is power rankings time. Now, the jersey I'm wearing is a Rob Ramage jersey. I got this one, of course, from Ben H Sports. Got to get that plug in there. Um, Only because I've received so many jerseys from him, and he's a really decent guy. And this was one that I hadn't seen anywhere before, and it's got the captaincy on it. I like getting jerseys with the C's on it. Anyway, Rob Ramage was the unfortunate soul that was the last one to touch a puck that went into his own net that was credited as a goal for Billy Smith. And this was when he played for the Colorado Rockies. He would go to the Toronto Maple Leafs after that and become their captain. So I figured Rob Ramage was kind of responsible for goalies starting to get goals indirectly. So I should wear his jersey for today's power rankings. And Toronto's been on the upswing lately, so makes sense to wear it for that reason as well. And it's a throwback, and I kind of had some fun with the throwback stuff because of the Whalers jerseys being out there today. No, I am not using a Whalers logo for the power rankings. I apologize. That being said, let's go ahead and start off at number 31. And it's Detroit, right? Because it's been Detroit, 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 Detroit. No, not tonight. Not tonight, it's not. Tonight, it's Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators lost to Detroit. Montreal lost to Detroit. Ottawa lost to Montreal. So that kind of tells me, all right, well, these teams are all kind of playing poorly. And I have to have Ottawa number 31. They were number 28 last week. And Detroit is number 30. So again, for Detroit fans, you made it. You made it out of the bottom. I don't have the Atlanta Thrashers logo anywhere in between here. But they're still well out of a playoff spot. And although Philadelphia lost tonight, so they're still only 25 points back. So fingers crossed. So yeah, 30th overall on the power rankings. We'll see whether or not they can stay at 30th or go any higher. They've only won 13 games this year. It's just they seem to win them back to back, and then they lose 8. So they'll probably be 31st again next week. Number 29, moving up one spot from where they were last week, is the Ducks. So Anaheim Ducks, 29th. It's been a long year, and it just keeps getting longer. The loss tonight against the Hawks is just the latest setback. It's just been a miserable season. I don't know that there's anything that's going to fix it either. I guess we're into better luck next year category with them. They're lowest in the West, last place. And we're already up to January 11th. By now, St. Louis was already climbing their way out of the bottom, so Anaheim is not. Number 28, moving up one spot from last week. So kind of switching places with the Ducks is the LA Kings. So the Los Angeles Kings get their way out of the bottom row. And it's faint praise, I guess, at this point. Again, these are the 4 teams that you look at and you go, well, they're not making the playoffs. And then we're going to get into some teams that it doesn't look like they're going to, but we can't come out and just go, they're not going to make it. Some will, though. There are going to be some in the comment section that are going to try to do that. Number 27, dropping from 24 last week. This is a new low for these guys. This is absolutely a new low for the Montreal Canadiens. They did get the overtime win tonight against team number 31 on the board, but a nice long losing streak has sabotaged their season. And even in the victory they had tonight, they were kind of outplayed by the Ottawa Senators. And you look over here, they are ahead of the New Jersey Devils, but I think they're only 6 points ahead of the New Jersey Devils. They are closer to the Devils than they are to the Flyers. So that's a problem right there when the Devils have a better chance of catching you than you have of catching the Philadelphia Flyers. So for Montreal, this. I've seen this organization go through periods that feel like it's bottom. This kind of feels that way. Although after Patrick Roy left and then things got ugly there, that really felt like bottom for the franchise. This is close. This feels close to me. Number 26, dropping from number 23 last week. So down 3 spots, the Buffalo Sabres. I understand there's injury problems. I also understand that before Skinner got hurt, he wasn't scoring at the rate he was supposed to anyways. He was scoring at a rate of about 25 goals maybe, and they're paying him about $9 million a year. So the expectation was that he would get more goals than what he'd been providing. Losing Olofsson definitely hurts. Not going to argue with that. But the power rankings board goes by wins, losses, and as I always tell people, I update it every single day. So every day these teams move around, and so for the Sabres, it's been a gradual drop for them. Number 25, moving up from 27 last week, and I'm sure their fans are going, wait, did you drop our logo and forget about it? No, here's New Jersey. New Jersey's up to 25, and what's interesting is New Jersey was 30th here, 29th, 30th, 27th last week, now they're up to 25th. They're winning more than they're losing. And they seem to be turning a corner. Now, we know they're not making the playoffs, but they're definitely having a decent second half. I would compare it to Arizona a couple of years ago, how they had an absolutely miserable start to the year, and they actually had a respectable second half of the season, and there was some optimism in Arizona as a result. New Jersey kind of feels like that. The Arizona Coyotes, remember at the end of not this past season, but the year before, I was arguing, you know what, these guys are actually pretty good. They're playing pretty well. And then they ended up not being able to score again last year. This year, it looks like they should be a playoff team. The Pacific is so weird. Number 24, moving up one spot from last week. It's been an up and down kind of year. The Rangers, I think the potential is there for them to be better. But they're far enough out that I think Kreider's going to get rented out at the deadline. And what they get back for Kreider could very well decide how well their fortunes turn out in the upcoming seasons to come, like next year and the year after. And what they do with their goaltending. Apparently they're listing on Georgiev. And if you make him a really good offer, you'll get Georgiev. Because Shesterkin apparently is ready. Whether or not Lundqvist sticks around, they feel like they have no lack of depth when it comes to goaltending. They're not worried about it. So Georgiev looks like he's the odd man out right now. And for Montreal, Shesterkin won 2 games for them. Lundqvist lost the game he played. If anything, Shesterkin's making the argument right now, hey, maybe I can be the starter. And if you're the Rangers, you might go, you know what? Here you go. Here's the net. Try to run with it. We have to see what's going to happen when Lundqvist leaves anyways. And sorry, Georgiev, you're a good middle-of-the-road guy, but we don't think you've got the star power that Shesterkin's going to have, so we'll choose him over you. That's how it feels like things are going to end up. And because of his contract, they kind of had to make this decision now. And so far, it's worked out okay for them. All right, at number 23, moving up from 26 last week. This is the highest they've been on this board since 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, the Sharks were 23rd. And they seem to have changed the way they're playing. So it feels like Bob Boughner's starting to get his systems in place. And it's not an overly exciting game that they're playing, but they're winning. And Aaron Dell has looked really good. His save percentage is now well above 900. I'm not having that discussion on my previews anymore because it's dead. Dell's save percentage keeps getting better. It got better tonight, and it was 907 coming into tonight's action. So with a bona fide starter in Dell, who thought we'd see that a year ago, but it's here. And just the fact that they're playing really well defensively. The defensive side of their game was a problem extensively in the first half. And I think that's a big part of the reason Peter DeBoer is now gone. But it's been pretty good lately. And tonight against Dallas, they out Dallas. They played Dallas's own game and they kind of beat him at it. So a very impressive result for the San Jose Sharks tonight. And they are slowly but surely moving up. And they've done this before. They did it in November, and then the nosedive hit. So maybe they're making their way up in January, and then they'll nosedive again in February. I did make that joke that December was over. Hey, they were good in October, they were bad in October, good in November, bad in December. So they'll be good in January, and maybe they're good in January. So, we'll see what happens with the San Jose Sharks. All right, continuing on. I just had to. So the review is being uploaded while I'm doing this, so I have to pause for the review when it's uploaded and make sure that the ad breaks don't just go wherever. Because, YouTube will put in, like, ad breaks every 3 minutes. It's ridiculous. I've let it do it automatically because they go, oh, let us do it automatically. Just don't worry about it. And then I look the day later and I go, holy crap. So, all right, at number 22 and moving nowhere. They're in the same spot as last week. Sorry. Same spot as last week as Chicago. So they win a bit, they lose a bit. They're middle of the pack. They're at NHL 500. They've won 20, they've lost 20 in regulation. They're very likely not to make the playoffs, but they're still tantalizingly close enough that for some Chicago fans it may feel like, if we get on a bit of a run here, but then they end up submarining that run when it starts. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going to end up with Chicago. I had debated about whether or not to have San Jose ahead of Chicago. I decided to leave San Jose behind Chicago for a bit. I figured having San Jose move up 3 spots was good enough. That's part of it, too, when I do the power rankings. I try to make sure there's not some insane, crazy movement unless it's really justified. And so I don't have knee-jerk reactions to really ugly games either. That's why Vancouver's not down here. Those games in the state of Florida didn't knock them all the way down into the bottom. Number 21, dropping 2 spots from where they were last week. They were 19 last week. This is the lowest they've been on the countdown, and that's Nashville. Rough week for Nashville. They replaced their coach. We'll see if it works. I mean, we can all make, funny little remarks about Nashville and the coaching and John Hines and whatnot. Maybe it works. There have been situations before where coaches get hired and you get that bump after they get hired. Mike Yeo, pretty good record when he first got hired by the St. Louis Blues. So we'll see if Nashville gets that as well. They are a team in the West that I think if anybody can turn around and get in, who's not currently in a playoff spot, and not named Winnipeg. Technically right now Winnipeg's below the playoff line, but they have the exact same record as Vancouver. So Winnipeg and Nashville to me are the two most likely to turn things around in the second half and maybe breathe down the necks of a team like perhaps Colorado, who seem to be slipping. Number 20. These guys dropped 2 spots from where they were last week, and that's Minnesota. The Wild they're right below middle of the road. Middle of the road, I think you can say, is probably 16, 18 around here. They're a little bit below that right now. They are still close enough to a playoff spot. They're 3 teams back. They're, I think, 4 or 5 points back. I don't have room on the board to put all the points as well. I already have a board that I do that with. And so they're not far enough out for management to give up on it. But they're not close enough either for people to say, well, if they win the next couple and somebody else loses a couple, they're in, because it's a little more difficult than that. But we're still in the middle of January, not early March. So no reason to give up yet if you're Minnesota. Number 19. These guys dropped from 16 last week. And it's Philadelphia. That road trip was just killer. Now, they did have that bounce back, that first home game. They looked really good. And then tonight, they couldn't beat Tampa. So they got passed. They got passed tonight. And yet, for Philadelphia, they're in a playoff spot. They're technically in that playoff spot. But Columbus looks like they're ready to jump up and grab a playoff spot. That being said, the team that's in number 18 spot also looks like they could get into that spot. They were 21 last week. Florida had a pretty decent week. They're 18th now. So a good week has helped turn things around for Florida. And for Philly, there are some reasons for concern. And, I mean, getting shut out by Tampa is not the worst thing that can happen to you. And I think they outplayed them at parts of tonight's game. But Columbus just looks like they are going to steamroll their way into a playoff spot right now. And that's with a goaltender that at the start of the year, we all kind of laughed at the idea that he would play more than 25 games. That's Korpisalo's net. Merzlikins isn't stopping anything, so it's Korpisalo's net. And it, with Florida seemingly looking like they could turn the corner as well, it may leave Philadelphia on the outside looking in. Number 17, moving up from 20 last week. They do move up 3 spots, and that's the Edmonton Oilers. Now, if they had won tonight, if they'd gone into Calgary and they'd won, they would have been hired in 17th. They came into today in 17th, and I said, all right, we'll see what happens. If they go in and they beat Calgary, that tells me they got to move up. If they don't beat Calgary, I've got them in the right spot. And that's something that I do with the power rankings too, where I look at the end of the night sometimes and I don't move anybody. I'll go, yeah, no, they're in the right spot. We're good. Everybody's where they should be. Just because you lose a game doesn't necessarily mean you move down. Just because you win a game doesn't necessarily mean you move up either. Because it doesn't mean that loss, let's say Edmonton were to lose against Florida, yes, they would swap spots. But if Edmonton loses against a St. Louis or Washington, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to drop behind Florida. So that's kind of how I do this. Which I understand at the end of the week, people sometimes look at it and they go, oh, this team had a 3-0 week. Why did they only move up that much? But It may very well depend on who they beat, how they beat them, and all that other wonderful stuff. Number 16, dropping from number 11. They are all over the map, and I don't know what to make of the Vancouver Canucks right now. I understand that with that win over Buffalo today, they're technically in a playoff spot ahead of Winnipeg. But for me, at number 15, down one spot from last week, is Winnipeg. So I have Winnipeg one spot ahead of Vancouver. This is kind of a Western Canada thing that I've got going on here. And Winnipeg is sitting outside of a playoff spot. They have the same record as Vancouver. And I understand people are going to say, well, the Oilers are ahead of Vancouver. They are. But coming into this week, the Canucks were number 11. Ottawa was number 20. Now they're right next to each other. So again, based on trends, Vancouver better be careful because they could find themselves down in the 19 to 20 region next week. And the Oilers could continue to trend up. If they beat in Calgary, that would have caused them to trend further up. It probably would have bumped Vancouver and the Jets down. But that's not how things worked out. Number 14, dropping one spot from last week because they got passed. Not because they're having a bad run. They're playing well. But they did drop tonight based on the loss in San Jose. They dropped just a little bit. And Dallas, I still have concerns with their scoring overall. They have some good streaks in there. They have, the winning streak was really impressive and all. And they lost tonight. We'll see whether or not they bounce back in that next game. I want to see that and see some continued improvement overall from this team. I'm happy with Dallas. I think they're playing relatively well. I understand they were on a pretty big winning streak coming into tonight's action. And may very well be that they were tired coming into tonight's game. So we'll see this coming week what happens. But I'm looking at the 13 teams ahead of them and going, yeah, okay. Number 13, this is the lowest that they've been. The lowest they've been on a power rankings. They were number 5 last week too. But Colorado, I am concerned about Colorado. Colorado has now dropped below Dallas. And Colorado is third in that division. They're fading fast from any hopes of being first. And now they're going to have to look behind them at teams like Nashville and Winnipeg. And I think there's a goaltending issue going on with Colorado as well, where they're trying to get Grubauer going. And I guess I understand it, but shouldn't you be trying to win all your games more than trying to get a goaltender going? So if they're trying to get Grubauer going, it's a mixed bag at best. And it's affecting their standing. So, and I've thought all year that Francouz is the better goaltender. So we'll see what they do, but I've had them drop substantially. I think that loss against the Pittsburgh Penguins, that's a tough one. And there's been so many little tough losses along the way. So yeah, they're all the way down to 13th this week. That's an 8-spot drop. So that's what I call a market correction. Number 12, moving up 5 spots from last week. They're starting to look like the Flames again. They have yet to lose in 2020. And for Calgary, they are starting to look like the better team in Alberta. That being said, they had the exact same record as Edmonton coming into tonight. They beat Edmonton in regulation. They move up to first place in the division. So this division, there's not a whole lot separating first from fourth and fifth. Remember when the Pacific Division was going to be the joke of the league and the Central was way better? That's kind of gone. See, the thing with the Pacific is, so if you look at the overall division, you're going to look at the 3 teams in California and say, well, yeah, see, the Pacific's weak. But I haven't done the research, but I would be interested to know, the top 5 teams in the Pacific, are they just getting points against those 3 teams in California, or do they have pretty good records against everybody else as well? That's something I get into more with previews later on in the year, I would think. But I don't know. This is a pretty strong run for some of the teams in this division, although there's a chance that Vancouver's falling off, despite the win over Buffalo. They still have 2 more games in this road trip, and tomorrow they've got an early game against Minnesota. Then they finish it off in Winnipeg, so it does not get easier from here. Number 11, moving up 4 spots from where they were last week. This is the highest I can remember the Columbus Blue Jackets being on a power rankings in quite a while. I know towards the end of last year they were not number 11. After they got Duchesne and everybody at the deadline, they actually, their play worsened. And this is the highest they've been this year on the power rankings. So it's not that long ago. Let me see how long ago it was. They were number 26 on the power rankings 4 weeks ago. Then they moved up to 23, moved up to 20, moved up to 15, and this week they're number 11. It has been a march up the power rankings. The team that was one up, one down constantly, and then they'd have two down and one up. That's over. And with Elvis in net, they've actually kind of gotten better. So yeah, Columbus 11th overall. Things are looking pretty good if you're a Columbus fan right now. They're sitting just outside the playoffs, but Philadelphia looks highly catchable. Number 10, dropping from number 6 last week. This is the lowest that they've been in quite a while. And it's an alarming back-to-back shutouts that caused them to drop to number 10. They've been shut out 2 games in a row. And if their upcoming week doesn't show some sort of an improvement, and there's no guarantee that it necessarily will, they could find themselves down into this range next week. I know it's tough because they got shut out by Carolina and they got shut out by Tampa, 2 of the better teams in the East. And it's an East Coast swing that also destroyed Vancouver this week. So, East Coast swings can be tough. But for Arizona, they need to show some more goal scoring. And that's been my concern with them all year. So seeing them get shut out in back-to-back games, that raises alarm bells for me, no matter who it is. And not just losing, but getting shut out back-to-back. When you've got Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall now has 8 points in 12 games with Arizona. And I really think it's the way that Arizona's coached. I don't think we're going to see players get 80, 90 points in Arizona because of how they're coached. I don't think that's going to happen. The system they play won't allow it. The Islanders have a similar situation with the way that they play hockey, and it's just it's not conducive to really high scoring totals, which completely flies in the face of picking up Phil Kessel in the offseason when you think about it. Kessel needs to be in a situation where he plays on a team that scores 3.5 goals a game and thrives on the power play, and in Arizona it just hasn't worked. It's been a bad fit, really, for the most part. But we'll see if things pick up for him in the second half. Number 9, staying in the same spot as last week, Carolina. The Canes, some up and down, but they are still in a playoff spot right now. They're the number 1 wild card. They would play Boston in a series if it started right now. And they're keeping the Islanders and Pittsburgh in their sights. They're not catching them, but they're keeping them in their sights. And they don't have to worry as much about teams beneath them as Philadelphia does because they're playing better than Philadelphia overall. Although Philadelphia has a large home schedule coming up to get their confidence back, that definitely would help Philadelphia out a lot. Number 8, same spot as last week. Islanders. The New York Islanders, it's been weird, really, with the Islanders. They had the goalie rotation that was going great, and then Greiss kind of fell off, so Varlamov becomes the guy. Eberle hasn't had a great season offensively. There are a number of guys you can look at on this team and say, wow, you would think they'd have more points and goals, much like Arizona. And maybe it's the coaching that causes that. Maybe it's the systems that cause it. So maybe Eberle, much like Kessel, maybe he would thrive in a different system. But winning's an important thing too, so I don't think that they're going to complain too much as long as they're winning and looking like they're going to be in the playoffs. Knock them out of the playoffs, we'll see if things change. But yeah, the Islanders, number 8 for 2 weeks in a row. They're just outside the first row. They've been pretty consistent. They were 9 2 weeks ago, 8 this week, and 8 last week as well. So pretty consistent. Number 7, dropping from number 3 last week, is Vegas. And I toyed with whether or not to have Vegas higher, and it really comes down to this. They allowed 4 goals in the first period against LA. And then they got shut out tonight at home by Columbus. So 2 home games that look on the schedule like they should be winnable for a team that should be a contender, and they lost both in regulation. So for me, Vegas takes a bit of a hit this week. And so they're down to number 7. And it's a big part of the reason Columbus bounced up as much as they did. Being able to go into Vegas, silence that crowd, and play that game that they played, it was masterful by Columbus. Very impressive. Tip of the hat to Columbus for that, because you don't often see that in Vegas, where a team takes the crowd out of it like that. Vegas has been toying with comebacks a lot since that comeback victory over St. Louis. You get the feeling that they're never really out of a game now, that they understand they can come back. Against Columbus, there was no real sign of that tonight. So, pretty strong result for Columbus means it does affect Vegas's ranking here. Number 6, moving up from number 12 last week. 3 wins in a row. They've looked pretty good again. Okay, we're going to try this again. 2 weeks ago, they were number 6. They dropped to 12. This week, they're 6 again. Boston, you've won 3 in a row. You've done it again. You've won 3 in a row. We'll see whether or not they can actually take the place where a lot of people think I should have them. If they're winning, they'll get there. But that needs to be more of a thing than it had been until this week. This week was a good week for them. And with the 3 straight victories, yeah, they jump back into the top row. It helps that other teams have shown some flaws like Vegas, like Arizona. And they jump past the Islanders as a result of the victory over them. And the way they won that game was impressive. There's just a lot of things with Boston right now that tell me they seem to be coming out of it. Seem to be. So maybe what I had hoped for, which was that loss at home against the Oilers, which was pretty complete of a loss, that would snap them out of it. So hopefully that's what started the turnaround into what we're seeing now. And Krejci and DeBrusk have played very well since Cassidy called them out. So things are looking pretty good for the Bruins, but we'll see if they move up next week or end up back down in 12th again. Number 5, dropping from number 4 last week. This is the lowest they've been on the chart in a while. The Capitals. Yeah, some struggles here and there, and I can understand if we're at a point in the schedule where they can't play well for a whole 82 games. Maybe that's what we're seeing with Washington, that they're just not quite in sync. But that loss at home against New Jersey, that hurts. And the game against the Philadelphia Flyers as well. There's definitely something with Washington that seems a bit off. So I didn't overcorrect, but I felt like they're not a top 4 team right now. Number 4, moving up from the number 7 spot. This is the highest they've been all year, and that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, the Leafs are playing very, very well. Matthews is playing excellent. Everybody still has concerns regarding their team defense and whether or not it's going to hold up. Everybody has concerns about if Freddie got hurt, what would happen. But you know what? The Maple Leafs have had a pretty decent run along the way here. And so I don't see any reason to think that they won't make the playoffs. It's going to be interesting, though, because I don't think they catch Boston now that Boston started winning again. And I don't know that they can catch Tampa. I know they're not that far behind Tampa, but it just feels like Tampa's hit that. Like they had a nitrous boost that they hit about 10 games ago. And, you know, when somebody's got that nitrous boost, it's so unfair. And it feels like that's what Tampa's playing with. And so Toronto, while they're 4th on the board, the Atlantic looks pretty strong right now. Number 3, moving up from number 10 last week. And a 10-game winning streak will do this. A 10-game winning streak will leave you, the Tampa Bay Lightning, as the number 3 team on the power rankings board. And if they win every game this coming week, there's no way they're not number 1. There's no way. And honestly, has Tampa been number 1 at all this year? No. 3 is a tie for as high as they've been. They started the season at 3rd. I had St. Louis at 2nd, and I had Washington in 1st. And yeah, all of those teams are in the top 5. So I'm pretty happy about my preseason power rankings as compared to where we are right now. We don't need to get into where I had New Jersey. Tampa started to look like Tampa again. And once again, if they have another really good week this week, then they'll be number 1. And I want you guys to all act surprised when it happens. Number 2, and I really debated about this. For the 2nd week in a row. For the 3rd week out of 4, St. Louis is number 2. St. Louis seems to be turning it back around again. I think for them, blowing that lead in Vegas was their wake-up call. And they seem to be turning things around and getting it going. And they had a very good game tonight. That being said, I didn't think that the team that's in 1st played poorly enough this week for me to drop them out of 1st and push St. Louis into 1st. St. Louis, though, Binnington looks like he's in Binnington form, and there is no one line you can shut down with these guys. And Robert Thomas is kind of having that second half that I thought he would. And they don't need any one scorer on any given night. Well, although Perron's been great, and now they've got 4 players in the All-Star game. So for St. Louis, things look pretty good right now, and I have them in second place. But again, they're going to need to win some games to stay ahead of Tampa. And we'll see whether or not Toronto is able to maintain that spot week after week now that they're 4th overall. So that means number 1 for the second week in a row is Pittsburgh. That victory over Colorado for me really kind of sealed their spot. And we know Crosby's coming back this coming week. Very, very good chance that Crosby plays between now and the next power rankings. And with all the injuries, they're still finding ways to win. They're still finding ways to win without Gensel, their number 1 scorer. We're almost up to the point where we could pull out like a Grinch style a rhyme about it came without Gensel, it came without Crosby, it came without Schultz and without Dumoulin. Like you could just have the whole list of players that they don't have. Dumoulin, that great defensive shutdown guy they've got, don't have him. Matt Murray's not been playing like Matt Murray, although he seems to be ready to come out of that as well. Jari's been fantastic. Completely unexpected that he'd be this good. So yeah, Pittsburgh. This is quite the story that they're writing, and with Washington kind of having some problems, it opens a door. Maybe Pittsburgh can catch Washington. It is a crazy universe we live in where I have Pittsburgh number 1 back to back, and yet here we are. They're number 1 back to back. We'll see, though, if Tampa takes that spot for them next week. They went from 10-3 this week. That's a pretty strong move. And so I would not be surprised to see Tampa number 1 next week. But act surprised if it happens. That being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Thank you for watching these videos, for commenting on these videos, and for helping the channel grow. My last look at it, it's 130,858 is where the subscriber number's at. I know you guys can't see exact numbers anymore, so that's why I'm letting you know. And yeah, we'll see. I need a less itchy jersey next time around too. So for when I do the preview, it's gotta be something a little less itchy. I don't know why this one's itchy. Anyways, some of them just fit weird. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And I will talk to you again, well, tonight, because I have to do the preview for Sunday's games. So I'll talk to you then.